Everybody, you know I'm back here again today with another extraordinary person. And I always say ordinary people do extraordinary things. Here's another person that's doing extraordinary things. I love it. Please introduce yourself because people know I talk too much. So let me throw it over to you. What type of nonprofit you want to start? Why you want to start the nonprofit? And tell us something about you and your journey that got you here.
Well, thank you. My name is Ersula Odom, and the nonprofit that I'm starting is Rescuing History. Let that sink in for a moment. And the reason that I want to do this is because all too often I've seen people throw away the things that explain who we are and why we're so fantastic as a people in the garbage. And it could be something as simple as a church program. Pick up your church program, look in there. You may find photographs of somebody that is long since gone, and it may be the only photograph that their descendants will have. That's throwing away history when you throw that away. Now, what we do is try to find ways to capture and preserve, and then present that history back to the people that can benefit from it. And that happens in multiple ways, in that we may publish something, we may simply share the stories behind the information that we have, use it as an educational tool. So rescuing history is one, knowing what to preserve, educating people on what to preserve, and then preserving it, and then using it to teach. That's what rescuing history is all about.
Now, tell us about your journey. What brought you here? And this now you shared your journey, and I thought it was amazing. And I want people to hear your journey. What brought you here?
Well,
all the way back. And what brought you here? Thank you.
The very first memory that I have is crawling under my grandmother's bed and pulling out a Have a Tampa cigar box. And it had a bunch of old photographs, old letters, and a lock of her sister's hair. And that became something that fascinated me from that time until now. And along the way, I've done a lot of different things that make me somewhat eclectic, or I have eclectic skills, meaning I do a little of this and a little of that, and a little of that, this. And finally, it has come together in something that makes it all make sense. And that journey included being a programmer with a large data processing company, GTE Data Services. I went from being a programmer to a manager of systems documentation and training for teleops, meaning that I got to travel all over the country to install and then train people on how to use those systems for their billing system, for their carry access billing. AWAS is one of the systems I was thinking about where, well, I'm not gonna get into the whole telephony part, but the point is, I was a manager of systems documentation and training, and my staff had to analyze, pull together the information, and then train on those systems. I went from there to wanting to have my own business, and I spent time in a sales marketing company where I got all those licenses from life insurance to mutual funds, long-term care, all that, and built a business selling life insurance and mutual funds and what have you. But then I wrote a book and I wanted to go out and market that book, and was told, well, you have a contract doing this, you can't do that. I said, okay, well, y'all can have the contract back. I want to do this. So I became an author and then a publisher. And I pulled those skills together, the computer, the knowledge of story, and started creating legacy walls where we educate as we decorate. All that real estate that you have in these buildings can be teaching people what to do, what you have done, and how that story can resonate with what their goals are today. You can have that wall tell your story every day, every time, all the time. And now I have Ursula's History Shop, which allows me to, as people come in, I can tell them stories about artifacts, because I've collected a lot of different things, from galvanized tubs to chamber pots. And I will tell the story as it relates to the experience that I'm talking about in a given day. For instance, I may be talking about baseball players. Well, I have an area of the shop that talks about the Negro Baseball League, Belmont Height Little League, and then the various baseball franchises around the country. And that pulls together little artifacts, books, anything that will allow you to have a conversation. And I even have a shelf that talks about the hockey players. And people look at me like, well, thought this was a African-American shop. Well, it is. We are part of everything. I mean, African-Americans are part of life. And as far as hockey is concerned, well, there are two moves in hockey, as I understand. One is called the butterfly that the goalie used. That was created by a Black person. And the other one is a slap shot that has its roots in baseball. That was created by Black people. So all of these things that I like to, discover, it allows me to tell the story. And with my galvanized tub, that's interesting to me too, because it's rooted in my past, but it's rooted in a whole lot of different cultures. You have the cracker country, they relate to it. You have Latin Americans, they relate to that tub. And then you have rural America, which I come from. I relate to it too. So we have an opportunity to talk about one little piece of, one artifact that can tell multiple stories. And that means if we are telling multiple stories, then we can interact with each other and learn from each other. And that's the whole idea. And as far as the nonprofit, the part where I'm just telling the story, that's where I collect things that I have no intentions of selling. I'm using it purely to tell the story. And people are wanting to give me things so that I can tell the story. And that's the museum type part of it. And that's the part that I'm talking about for nonprofit.
Wow, that's the preserving the history.
Yes.
And I think that we talked earlier that if you wipe out history, then you wipe out a people. So your approach is preserving history. And if you don't preserve your history, you're subjective to do the same thing all over again. Before I ask where a person can donate to you, this is Women's Month. As a Black woman, what does it mean to be a Black woman in these Americans?
How much time do you have? Okay, so truth. As a Black woman, I'm gonna tell you how I've evolved through life. One, being a country girl, I was quite shy, and it was just a struggle trying to be me. But as I moved into my career, I was well aware of being Black, but that's not how I operated. I was simply a person with a job to do. And that came first. Now, I have stories to tell about when people said things that were just out of line, but that's for another day. So I have stories like anybody else that are things that are not pleasant. But in terms of what kept me on the road, it was, this is a job I have to do, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. and you're not going to stop me from doing it.
I'm sure your parents had a role in that as well in bringing you up.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I say, I'm sure your parents had a role in bringing you up and preparing you for that world.
Well, yes, I am Ursula Smart Stevens' granddaughter. And she's the best in her league. And I strive to be the best in mine. She's the little dipper. No, she's the big dipper. I'm the little dipper. She's Ursa Major and I'm Ursa Minor. Now, does that give you some idea how much she's inside here?
All the way inside out, backwards, sideways, right. All over, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's always when we see people that's amazing like you, it's someone else shows us they standing on. That they didn't get it out of the blue. So I always say give recognition to that individual that showed us that you're standing there, because we all are. That's what we call history.
Yes.
Now, you have convinced me that you got a remarkable, impactful nonprofit that can change their narrative. Because when people know that history, it also gets them to think differently about themselves. And as a people, as an African-American people, we always been told about how bad we are. Yeah. So when you psychologically begin to expose African-American, especially those that have been beaten up, like those from the poorest of the neighborhood, when you begin to expose them to that history, you change that outlook and you change that person. So history is more than just about information. It's about transformation. So how can a person get some money over? No, you was about to say something. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're absolutely right. And you put your finger on the very thing that I really love about my legacy walls. Two situations comes to mind when one of the APs was being interviewed by a television station. She was pointing to the wall and she pointed to the part of the wall that I had put a blank star. And because of the theme of that particular wall, that was appropriate. And she said, every time she walks by that wall with students, she points to the star and say, that could be you. And that is exactly the intent of why I did that.
Now, and what wall? Share with us what wall you're talking about.
That's at Edison. That one is at Edison Elementary.
Now, and also, first of all, I apologize, friend. I found this on Facebook. Tell them where you from.
Where am I from?
Tampa, Florida. So we coming out of Tampa, Florida. I'm sorry, because I was going over the place. I was so amazed by what this lady was doing. I forgot in the introduction to say where you from, because this is being broadcast all over the place.
Oh, now you tell me.
Oh, yeah, all over the place. And I think that's one thing that we all need to have a platform so we can expose each other, because it's about building each other. I'm really deep into what I call Black economics. Because I don't trust anybody to do what we do other than ourselves. And then at the end of the day, we can do what we need to do to get where we need to get at. I'm out of Baltimore. And that's a term they use. They say, we all we need, we all we got. You know, that is actually a reality, because ask the people that dealt with training, when nobody came to get them, the only way they was able to make it is to make it themselves. And I think that should show us as Black people, we can't depend on nobody and point no fingers unless we create our own way out of this. And that's your part in this, and you're definitely through history playing that part. I thank you 100% for allowing me to do this. I know it took more time, and I told a fib. I said it was only going to take a little bit, but I wanted the world to hear this. So thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Anything you want to say? Oh, how can people get you some money? Did you?
Oh, well.
We got into everything, but that's a nonprofit. You can't operate if you ain't got no money. So,
well, yeah, I was waiting for a means of setting that up, but I do have a Cash App. Does that work?
It has a Cash App, but also, what's your email? Can they email you?
Oh, yeah, sure.
They email you, as you begin to get set up, then you can recontact them with where they can donate. Because one of the things that's going to happen is that she's going to have on her Facebook page a place where you can go and hit donate, and all her social media like Twitter and all like that. So once she gets set up, you can go to any of those sites and be able to donate directly. So keep in mind, she's just beginning. So that's why I brought her on now, and I'll bring her back on in 5 months. And let's see what she's doing. Thank you, appreciate it. So tell the people what your email is.
Okay, I have 2 emails, and in case one doesn't work, because I'm still in the process of setting a lot of these up. But the main email for the corporation that I have right now is Sulatu LLC, SULATOOLLC @gmail.com.
Okay, would you do it again and be very, very slow? Because you probably got a senior like me trying to follow you.
Okay.
So go ahead, give it to them.
It is SULATOOLLC @gmail.com.
Excellent.
Sulatu LLC @gmail.com. And
Anything
then I
you wanna
also have Ursula's History Shop @gmail.com.
All right, 2 emails. You can't say you got that money in your pocket. You've been trying to do something good, especially if you understand history and you understand the importance of telling the story. Thanks again, I appreciate you.
Thank you.